Everybody, I am Cinnamon Cooney, your Art Sherpa, and today I'm going to show you how you can paint this gorgeous bird on a cactus with cactus flowers. This is so exciting. It was a really fun project, and I think you're going to love it. I'm going to break it down step by step, explain every technique, every color mix, every tool, everything. To help me do that is my husband, John.
Hello.
It's going to make sure that if I'm demonstrating a technique, you can see it with the robotic camera. If you check the description below, there's links to the website where we've got extra resources like traceables and written out instructions called mini books, which are step-by-step photos. This video is going to be broken down into steps. You're going to see where you are in the steps in the picture-in-picture, which is amazing. It's part of a program called Acrylic April, where all April, every day at 1 p.m., I release a new video on a topic. This year's topic is flowers. It's called Bloom. So I would love to show you how you can paint this and also invite you to take part of this daily painting challenge. But you don't have to, just paint this one too. Get your paint, get your brushes, come back and meet me at the easel. I'm going to show you how to paint this. So let's hop on into this. I have the wish today on my 8x8 surface that you have balance in your mental health. Just so you know where they are on the palette, this is the cad yellow, the burnt sienna, the phthalo green, the phthalo blue, the titanium white, quinacridone magenta, cad red medium, Mars black, and I might use a little bit of ultramarine blue today. I'm going to get out my fluid paint later for the spines of the cactus, but you could just thin your white acrylic paint. The first part of this, of what I'm going to do today, you guys still good? You with me?
Oh.
Here we are, still going. I think we are officially halfway through right now at this moment.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think so. We're at our halfway point. I'm going to take a that's not half inch, it's a 3/4 inch angle. And I'm going to go ahead and just rub my little wishes into the ether. And we're going to grab our phthalo blue and titanium white, mixing them together. And then if this is the halfway point, come over about an inch. And then you're going to arc down a little bit. See that there? We're just sort of saying something is cactus, something is sky. That's all that's going on here. A lot more white. Just paint that in. How are you feeling today, John?
Pretty good. I like the blue for the sky.
Yeah, just a nice bright blue.
I'm looking forward to the contrast to the green. Like, what kind of green are you going to make?
That green I always make.
Well,
it's kind of like Pinky in the Brain. What kind of green are you going to make today? The same green I always make, Pinky.
But you should tell them about the other green that's the danger green that you mix wrong.
No.
Like you end up with an army soldier.
Well, it's not wrong. It's just if you want a muted green, you could do cad yellow and ultramarine blue, or you could use cad yellow and black if you wanted a more muted olive green.
Ah.
In this particular case, I'm going to take my phthalo green and my burnt sienna. I'm going to start here, and I'm going to come back up into the blue and just kind of imply the curve of my cactus. Saguaro cactus, I think is what they're called. It's the tall ones that look like men with their little arms up in the air that spiders nest in. Bet you didn't know that, but the dudes don't go touching the saguaros.
Wasn't going to in the first place.
Huh? What?
I wasn't going to in the first place.
Well, they do have a lot of spines that say, don't touch me.
I'm not one of those people who was like, I'm going to go give that thing a hug.
Those cactuses sometimes look like they want a hug, don't they? Like in spite of themselves, they'd like a little bit of love.
No. I maybe I spent too much time in West Texas with trees that grew spines out of their roots to try to get you.
Now, something for you guys at home to notice. Notice that my brush strokes are going from the top down and they have a little bit of a kind of curve on them. I'm even though this is a layer 1 and I'm going to definitely be painting a second layer on here, third layer, fourth layer, The directionality of our brush stroke can matter, but this is sort of how we're going to bisect our surface up. Guess what?
What's that?
We got to dry it before we go on.
All right.
So I'm going to heat my coffee and dry my canvas. So again, I want to put a slightly deeper coat of paint here and have it not be streaky. I'm going to go back into my sky, same brush, the 3/4 inch angle, just a nice brush, and I'm going to make a nice bright blue sky, summer blue sky. Phthalo blue is great for those summer blue skies. I'm going to get that second coat on there so it's nice and even.
Mm.
So we're going to make this a nice even blue, and we're going to come on into the canvas. You know how John was talking about the muted green?
Mm.
What did you say, the wrong green earlier?
Well, it's, you're trying to get that pretty, like, sparkling gem-like green, and you end up getting, like, army green, and you're like, what did I do?
So I'm going to take a little black and mix it into my yellow over here. You can even get a little of your ultramarine blue in there, kind of deepen it up. And you're going to see that I have quite of a nice shadow of a green. And I'm going to begin by kind of implying the ridges between the surface. I'm coming up on the edge of the brush and I'm brushing up. You can see that? We can adjust these as we need to, but we're just talking about the ridges. So if there's one there, we're going to come over a little bit. And this one is going to be a little more upward here. We're just working out our shadows. We don't have to be too fussy because we've got a big flower over this and we've got a bird over this. We're just kind of getting this in. The reason I'm doing it now instead of after those objects are in is because sometimes it can be a little challenging to work out this kind of patterning in something, the structure,
Mm.
once these other objects are in. So I believe it's a 5/12, so 1, 2, and then we're going to come over a little bit for 3. And a little of the Mars black, cad yellow, and a smidge of ultramarine blue. Over again. And then this one is a little bit narrower because, at this point we're in perspective. It's kind of like little railroad tracks here.
Mm.
So we've got that in. Not bad.
Oh.
Right? We have the beginning of the cactus. It's kind of an interesting thing to see go in. So we get back into our original green, which is our phthalo green, and our burnt sienna with a little bit of cad yellow. There we go. So slightly brighter cactus color. And we'll kind of begin to work that between the shadow spikes, the little shadow bits. Because they make little ridges. They're kind of like an accordion.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a lot of cactus in the wild. Actually, specifically seen these cactuses in the wild. I feel like sometimes as a species, we lose touch with the wild. I think for me, that's something that's happened to me over the years is I have lost touch with the wild.
Huh.
And I feel like I need to get back in touch with that.
That's interesting.
Feel like myself. Goals for this summer. Actually, I think right after Acrylic April, I'm going to do some getting into nature stuff. Exploring some national parks and everything.
Yeah.
Well, after the retreat, Acrylic April, then I'm going to take a vacation. All right. This is as far as we can go with this. Let's rinse out our brushes, make sure that they don't have any paint sitting in them. And then we're going to dry this so that we can do our sketching on the next part. Now, on the next part, I'm going to show you how to draw in, loosely sketch in the bird and the flowers. If you're using the traceable, it's at the next step that you would use that. Make sure it's really dry for that step too. So just dry before we move on. Now I'm going to sketch the next part in paint so that you can see it at home if you're drawing along with me. But if you're drawing along with me, I highly recommend that you use something that's not permanent like chalk. So if you want to change your mind or change a line, you would use that. If you're doing the traceable, go ahead and do that now. I'm going to get my number 4 round a little bit wet, and I'm going to come into, say, this nice light blue color because it'll be really easy to paint over if I change my mind on something. And I'm going to kind of talk about a big flower right here. I'm going to just very loosely and lightly sketch in where that's going to take up space. And then another one kind of like right here, coming up here. And so we've got these big flowers that are happening here. And then notice that how very lightly I sketch these lines. I'm just kind of saying, all right, this flower needs to take up this much space, right? These little cactus flowers. And they'll have little spines and things that come off and are interesting that we have here and there. But we'll get to those in a second, right? We can talk about this. Now let's do this one facing maybe the opposite way. So the things are interesting. And there's a bird here. And the nice thing about the bird is he's kind of looking back. I almost did this one, John, with my mom.
Yeah.
For the bird hop.
Oh.
So I'm going to begin his little body. I've got to kind of capture his gesture. So I'm going to make sure I get his little chest, which is really pressed out. And then, believe it or not, his head comes back that way. So I need to sketch in his little head looking back. This is, I believe, a woodpecker. But I don't know it's a woodpecker.
But it definitely eats the cactus.
It does something cactus related, and maybe I don't think it's a roadrunner. I haven't seen this bird specifically, that I have a memory of it.
It's a cactus adjacent bird.
But it was a cactus adjacent bird, so I was like, oh, I really like you. You're so cute. Tail's going to go down there. Maybe be covered by cactus, but we would see a lot of the wing. And then our beak is a little bit substantial, so it's going to come out at least that far. This is a very kind of loose sketch, isn't it?
Yeah.
It just sort of lets us know where things are. Like I know his chest is here, so I'm going to want to make sure I have a highlight in here. I'm thinking about where the shadow goes and thinking about, the openings of these little cactus flowers and how the spines are going to work. And you can see where I really have detail on the cactus up here and not over everything, so that it's nice that I got the ridges in the way I did. But most of this is going to be flower and bird because, bloom. It's acrylic April. We're painting flowers every day. Maybe you just came to paint this gorgeous, cute bird because you knew who he was, where you live, and you're like, oh, I love that bird. That's my favorite bird. And then you were like, well, 30-day painting, what? So if you didn't know, we're painting together every single day in April. You can do it anytime. It could be August, it could be December, but we paint every day, and there's 30 paintings on the topic of flowers. So if you ever wanted to be better at painting flowers, this program is completely free. We use a set materials and set brushes and stuff, and I highly recommend you hit the subscribe button because I do cool stuff like that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
All the time, programs and free things and all of that. And this year I'm hitting all the biggest hits. So if you have stuff that you've missed from previous years, hang in because they're all back, baby. All right. When we come back, we'll continue on the art journey. So once we have our structure, our focal objects sort of structured in, and we know where they're going to go, we'll begin coming and putting some detail back into the cactus. I think I'm going to grab my filbert, and I'm picking this brush because I want something a little smaller than my 3/4. And it has a nice edge to it, so I'm going to have a little control, and it's going to let me really kind of shade and create the shape and form of my ridges. So back to burnt sienna and phthalo green and cad yellow. And we're going to get right into here. A little more burnt sienna. because they're bright, but they're not bright like new green grass. Right, and let's get some here also with some white, and that can be like the highlight. So kind of know where we're at in those values. Really wipe out the brush because if you don't, then it carries too much water and it doesn't paint out nice. I'm just loading it back up. So come here. And I'm going to begin to paint back kind of a highlight. It's okay if you go back into your bird a little bit. There's so many spines coming off of these that there's a lot of visual kind of noise that you'll be working out. The dark values are where things are in shadow
Hmm.
because the ridges create some pretty deep shadows. So where their placement is really a guide.
Yeah.
And I'm going to paint down into the flower a little bit because I don't know how like loose and open the petals will be.
Oh, yeah. So you want to make sure you have the color in the background.
I want to make sure that my background is nice and really shines over their frame. But you can already see the cactus coming into being.
Now, if
It's wild, isn't it?
if you needed to, you could use a traceable to retrace.
Yeah. You can use the traceable to retrace at any point. You can use that at any point. Now I'm going to get a little of my white into that mix like we talked about earlier. And let's come to the top of our spine. And I'm just kind of brushing on the side here. See how we're creating that
Yeah.
highlight on the spine. I use the side of my brush and blend it wet into wet. Oops, I always lose a towel. It went away.
We'll get it
We'll
between
get
the
it later.
steps.
It's not necessary right now, so I'll get it later. I can come back into my yellow and my black and my blue for that deep green. And we'll just start that shading, you know. Say, oh, hey, we're shading the saguaro.
You know what?
Mm.
In Texas, the saguaro shades you.
True. Not untrue. Not untrue. It's pretty good. It's pretty okay. This is the first layer of it, and when we come back, I'm actually going to show you how you can make this look really amazing in that sort of weird matte cactusy skin with this little brush here. But let's just get this next layer of value so you kind of have learned to mix it, and then we'll come back and give it some more form and highlights. So in this step, I want to really kind of blend the little ridges of the cactus and shade them out. I'm going to take my yellow over to my green and burnt sienna. This is my round blender. You could use a filbert or round. Any brush that you use for blending is good here. I really like this brush. Have for a minute. John will tell you.
Mm-hmm. It's
I'm a,
a regular go-to.
it is it is a commonly gone to little brush that I use. And come there. I might put some of my blending medium out here so my paint doesn't dry on me very quickly.
Okay.
You can use products like Golden Open Acrylics if your paint's drying on you very quickly, or you can use products like this, which modify the drying time of the paint. And this is the Gloss Glazing Liquid by Golden Artist Colors, which is my favorite version of this.
It modifies.
It modifies. And I can get into my green for the cactus itself, which again is phthalo green and burnt sienna and cad yellow.
Hmm.
But if I get my glazing liquid in there, well, look at that nice soft blend I get. Isn't that wild?
That is.
And I think that's pretty powerful when you can get a good blend going,
Hmm.
especially in acrylics, because then people are always like, is it oils? And it's like, well, they're mediums. You can blend even gouache. You just have to understand the temperament of the medium. That's the type of art supplies you're using.
Ah,
Your medium,
I
like
didn't know.
watercolor or acrylic or oil. It's giving it a little more of a blend, but I've got to blend into that dark area.
Yeah.
So I might even grab my green and black and cad yellow this time. Look at that.
Ooh.
Just get a deep green going. Let's get that gloss. And I'm just softly going back and forth. And that shadow might be, a deeper shadow because we're closer out on the. Actually, I think that one will be lighter, deeper into the cactus.
Mm.
And the shadow will be smaller. Just work this here. Glazing medium. The only thing with glazing medium is the part where you dry your canvas can just take a little longer.
Oh. Yeah, I
That's
can
not,
see that.
it's not bad though. It's just, you just have to know that it's coming.
Mm.
If you know it's coming, then you'll be like, oh yeah, I got that.
Oops.
Come along and ridges of them sequoia. And again, we've got a lot happening down here. So that's why I'm not putting my best blending low. Pull this out. A little more of the green and brown. Bunch more white. Just trying to highlight those ridges.
Yeah. Cactuses have ridges.
They really do, man. They are structured little planned out plants, aren't they?
Seem to be.
You know, they have a strategy to survive their environment, and they really like to utilize it. All right, I feel like that's a nice kind of shading on that. So let's dry that thoroughly, and we'll come back and we'll add the basis for which the spines will be coming out. So to start my spines, because they go behind the bird, because they go behind the structure of the flowers, and they're so along here, I want to do those now in the painting instead of later.
Okay.
I'm going to start them with a mix of ultramarine blue and burnt sienna and a little bit of titanium white. And what you're going to see is that makes a very nice gray. And I'm using the same round brush. I'm going to press it down and I'm going to make a little pad that the spines are going to sit on. This is the shaded part of it. So these can be a little pushed out because they're on the edge.
Mm.
I'm just pushing those along. So this will be like the shadow,
Yeah.
and we'll build a little white on top of that. Now, so I come here and I'm going to wipe this brush on my paper towel to kind of get some of the pigment off.
Layers.
Yeah, and then come back with a little of my white paint. And what you'll see is because there's still some pigment in the brush,
Hmm.
right? Even as I push it out, there's pigment, but it's lighter. And just tap around like that, just getting those little. I don't know what the structure is called.
I don't know either.
It looks like somebody. It's not, but sometimes it looks like it's hot glued on spines.
It puffs if they just.
Well, and you look at these things and you think to yourself, surely nature didn't make you that way. And then nature's like, yeah, I did. It was totally on purpose. What are you talking about?
So this is the desert. You do not understand.
Yeah,
Do
you don't
stuff.
get my plans. you know. So, but that gives us the beginning of those little spines on this cactus that we can play with. Come here and kind of clean these up a bit. See what you can do at a certain stage. Now I have to do the next part with a fine brush or liner, and I'm going to maybe rest my hand on the surface. And if I know I'm going to be resting my hand on the surface to steady myself or turning the canvas to get a better angle, I do want to dry it. So let's weirdly call this a step. It's like a micro step, mini step, but it'll help us get to the next step. Now I've got to do spines and I want them to feel sharp. And one of the ways that I'm going to do that is I'm going to use my fluid white. So I'm going to put it over here by my brown and my yellow because I'm going to be using those two colors to sort of desaturate. To get the fine lines, I'm going to use a liner brush. You can use a liner, a monogram liner. What you want is a nice length out and a sharp point, synthetic. Now, on some of these, they go all which directions, and then there's this fine kind of like hot mess of them. I'm going to take my brush into my brown and into my yellow. And then I'll go right into my white, creating this very light off-white color. Now, come up to the top here.
Little star-like thing.
Yeah, they just kind of go everywhere. I am hoping they are a ton of fun
Huh.
to paint.
Not
I
a
don't
ton
know
of.
at this stage yet.
They're not a ton to fall on.
They are not, and I have
They're
fallen
not
on
fun
them
to
more
fall
than
on.
one time. Because I had a Shetland pony who was aimed for things that were painful. He decided to unseat me. It was revenge. I didn't give that second helping of oats. Revenge! Little pony held a grudge. We're just getting those little cactusy spines.
Yeah.
This kind of makes me want to do more cactus. It's kind of an interesting subject. They're so weird. They're a little bit like architecture,
Mm.
and then they're also a little plant. And then
Little
if they've got
spiny.
flowers on them, then they're also kind of crazy there. It's just fun to paint. I think the desert is really beautiful.
In that do not touch me kind of way.
Yeah. I'm just trying to make irregular little lines around places.
Yeah.
So it looks like nature's saying, you're going to get it. But some of the lines are short and some of the lines are long. And some of the lines are long. Short and long. Nature loves a mashup. I'm going to start putting the spines a little bit heavier on that left side. Like you do.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean they don't go everywhere, but I just want kind of a nice heavy line. And sometimes I do let the brush go light on paint because that makes a less like focused little spine. And I think I'll come down here and we've got a little bird, we've got a lot of stuff happening to the side. And the rows of ridges, if you look at the cactus on a saguaro, they build up.
Yeah.
Some are light, some are not light. We might visit this topic again, big and detailed.
Mm.
Mmm. It's been so great seeing everybody do so well. Remember, guys, it's always okay to just watch, pause, rewind. Even on the live chat, you're not painting at my speed, you're painting at your own speed. I don't know if I've said something enough this time. I've been trying to post in groups to try to, say it and online, but I just want to say that to you is my speed isn't your speed.
Mm-hmm.
That's my speed. Sometimes my speed is not my speed. It can have different speeds. It can get away from me. It can happen. I'm having kind of a blast here.
All the little spiky things.
Yeah, and I think, down here I know I'm going to put a lot of things over it, but I feel like I'll have green peeking through and maybe some spikes, and that could be important. Even though we might not see the little details of them, just a spike here and there. All right. We have put in a cactus and it has spines.
Mm-hmm.
So when I come back, I'm going to show you what you do next. Here we are on the next step. I think we're doing pretty good. Do you feel it pretty good?
I think so.
This has been kind of a weird journey. It's been a weird journey. This year of Acrylic April has been a weirder year of Acrylic April for me.
Mm.
But somehow the process of hanging in, I don't know, it's giving something back. I hope it's giving something back to you too. Let's paint our bird in. You guys ready to paint in our adorable bird? That's always my favorite part.
I'm ready to watch you paint a bird.
I'm going to take a filbert here. This is my Simply Simmons number 8 filbert. You can't tell it's a number 8 anymore because it got dirty. And I'm going to begin with a little of my burnt sienna, maybe with my Mars black, just for coverage. I begin to kind of paint in his little body. So I'm stroking upwards. I have the little sketch in. My birds do end up being a little bit round. I like to feed them. They're never in lean times. A little tail going down. That might be peeking out around the flower. Because they do that, them tails. Let's get a little more black on the brush. And let's come stroke upwards with that black up into the little bird body. It's a weird little bird. This fellow is strange. I'm going to get a little of my ultramarine blue into my brown, and that always makes an interesting sort of gray. I'm going to brush that there because his underbelly is sort of in shade, He's looking pretty good.
Yeah.
I'll rinse out. And I'm going to do a little bit of the burnt sienna, but just with a little less of the black and a little more of the ultramarine up here into the head. I don't know that it makes that big a difference. Sometimes I'll look at something and want to make a subtle change, and then I get in there and I'm like, that is not a substantial change. But that's how you get to know yourself and your paint, finding those little moments and going, well, this was not the big whoa that I figured it would be. Much less of a whoa.
Mm.
They get a little black in there. Come up here, kind of in his little body. Wings are an interesting little thing, the way that they are. I'm also going to just make sure that some of that patterning will be down there on the tail. And then we should always have a little bit of a hint of a wing over here. Now, let's see if I can do this with my brush, my big brush, with the black to do the beak.
Yeah.
I may get in it and be like, oh, that's not going to work. But generally, if I have enough brush control, I can use a big brush to even do some of the detail work. All right, that's a nice little kind of form on him, isn't it? I didn't expect it to go in that well. Like, I wasn't sure. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to go in. But he's actually going in pretty well. Now, to do the next layer on him, he definitely needs to be dry. This is a base. So let's come back with it dry, and I'll show you the next layer. So Mr. Barty Pants needs some more paint, John.
More layers.
More layers for you, more layers for me, layering up. I'm going to get a little water on my brush. This is the filbert still. I'm going to come over and put a little more burnt sienna. I'm going to grab a little yellow and kind of add that in. You can see it kind of makes it a little, almost like an ochre. You could use yellow ochre if you had it for this. I'm going to come here onto the little bird body. And I'm going to very lightly layer up some kind of feathers. See that?
Yeah.
Just using the edge of the brush.
And that direction kind of makes the feather implication.
It does. Just implies a little bit of feather. Add a little white to our mix.
These feathers have been implicated in this bird.
It's something. There we go. It's really fun to paint little birds. I know we've done it a bit. We've had a few birds.
There's been
some birds. I like painting birds. I could paint birds and flowers on the channel all the time. Just landscapes. I could. That's looking really good. So he's building a little chest out.
The birds.
The birds.
And the dog.
The dogs.
Who goes bark,
bark, bark, bark, bark. Well, Spider just scared the dogs at the
he was
top of the stairs.
Crouching at the top of the stairs with his head tilted over with his hair falling down, kind of lurching over the edge, looking down the stairs to peek over the lip where it goes in the ceiling. And so he looks like a little troll crouching down there because he's got his jacket on. It's all oversized. And he's,
The dogs are like, no.
The dog just wasn't having it.
Not having it. So I'm putting a slightly darker color at the face and then lightening the chest a bit.
But I'm going to continue to talk about my home life instead of letting you teach this class.
I mean, I teach for free. He teaches for free. You're going to hear about our home life, son. You can always leave a comment and be like, no. And we'll be like, oh, we did it. Anyways.
We don't care about your creepy kid at the top of the stairs.
No, we usually don't get that. Yeah. People aren't comfortable there.
Yeah, them's fighting words.
Them is fighting words, I think, sometimes for people. So that looks pretty good. We've got, kind of a mid-range golden to a light in the chest. You can kind of see the brush makes a pattern that feels like feathers.
Yeah.
We're going to come here and get a little of our black. Actually, you know what? Different than that.
Really?
We're going to go a different direction. Let's rinse out our brushes. I was wrong.
All right.
That happens sometimes. I'm going to take a little of my white over here to my ultramarine blue. I'm going to mix a pretty light color. It will not be pure white, but it'll be pretty light. We're going to come here and tap in. Look at how the brush got that feathering. It's just makes my life easy sometimes.
Is that what they call that? Feathering?
Yeah, well, because they have this little patterning in the feathers.
Huh.
And I can use this to duplicate that. And it really is just about the shape of the filbert,
I thought
making
it was
that
because,
super easy for me.
see, I thought feathering was when you had 80s hair that looked like feathers.
Well, that also. We were actually talking about mullets at the hairdresser the last time I was there. I have a reunion at Cutout Says My Hair. And we were talking about how like the mullet has made a comeback. But
Seriously?
that you can't just have a mullet, you've got to style it
Work in front, party in the back.
with young people.
You know what? It's a thing.
It's a
I
thing.
bet your rat tails come back too.
Oh man, they're going to, aren't they?
Uh-huh.
No one
Except
ever brings back the good
they're
fashion. They're
calling
always
something
like,
else.
I miss the old bad fashion that we used to have. Let's have some more bad fashion. And I'm going to put this right here.
You know what?
Okay.
Doc Martens never go out of style.
Well, no, those are always cool. Just straight up. All right, this is a lot to take in. Let's get the basic shading of his body and the patterning of his wings. If you are having trouble with the pattern of the wing, listen, always have scratch paper, construction paper, colored paper that you can test brushstrokes on. So you can see it, you know, like gray or toned or anything. And then you can practice till you get that technique down and then put it on your canvas because you don't have to do it on your, you don't have to just do it here. Unproven.
Mm.
Not required. None of this is required. We're doing this for fun and personal enrichment, but you know. All right,
That's
when we
fine.
get back, we'll add some more details. Mr. Birdie Pants. So we've got the basic part of Mr. Birdie Pants in. I'm going to come over to my ultramarine blue and maybe my black, kind of mix these together. And it makes a kind of a deep blue gray. We're going to come to the top of the beak, kind of work that in. I'm also going to come back on the head a little bit and begin to paint in the eye. This is a number 4 round on this particular one is from the Simply Simmons line. The thing to remember about brush numbers is they don't have a standard in the brush industry, so the numbers are only relative to the exact brush I'm talking about. Other than that, you just want to look and go, oh, well, it's, you know, a small round, a medium round, a large round is what will, you know, be helpful. I'm going to get a little of the white mixed into my gray, like you do. Very carefully come back over. The top of the beak. Now it's just very dusted over. It's a little bit. It's a moment. Not all the moments, it's a moment. Well, that's too much of a moment. See, so sometimes you'll get too much of a moment. You'll go, I gotta come back and make that a little less of a moment.
That was an awkward moment.
They happen, man. I you wouldn't know it, but I am very socially awkward and I can be and I have a little social anxiety. Um but I'm also colorful. So I don't know what to tell you about that. It's just these both things are true. And I can't tell you how often like I have an awkward moment in my
Mm.
paintings and in my life. And then I have to, you know, really manage the post. I'm gonna come around with a little dusting of gray around the eye. I'm going to come back with black later. I just want to get this in now. A little dusting. Now, we're going to come in and get some red. Yeah, I just often stick foot in mouth. Add a little brown to it. Because, you know, nature.
Yep.
Because he's got a little red at the top of the head.
Ooh,
Add a boo-boo there.
it's an awkward moment.
Another one. Today has been brought to you by Awkward Moments. And it's hard to know what to do in an awkward moment, right?
Keep talking.
You know, I was trying to like make someone feel comfortable about me being okay with the outcome of something. And I was like, I'm completely detached from the outcome, trying to say like it's okay, it doesn't matter how it goes, but it just sounds like I don't care what you do. It was awful, and it's not what I meant. Luckily, they are a kind enough person to say something, So I was able to correct a misunderstanding, but boy,
I
I
don't
do
mean
understand when people go through it. I do.
I don't mean to sound like I don't care. I'm just Gen X.
That's you. That's a very you problem for sure. Okay, there it is. I'm going to use my little number one monogram liner here. So put a little red at the top. I've got a little bit there. I'm going to get into my black now with this small brush. See what happened there?
I
The
did.
hidden water drop got me.
I was wondering what that was. It's
That's a
like
hidden water drop. So
because
what
I
we
went.
do, so what that is I've rinsed out my brush and a drop was hiding up here and I didn't wipe off the brush and it snuck down the handle and got onto my painting. So I'm going to just suction it up
Little vacuum
with a little vacuum
with capillary action.
with capillary action
Science.
and come back and kind of paint the eye again. And see, by coming in and painting the black in where I had that thick gray line, I'm able to actually do quite a thin line. It's a very weird and awesome effect that you can do. I'm going to get a little of my bird color. Come here, bird color.
What is that bird color?
That is the burnt sienna and the cad yellow and titanium white. Very complicated color. I'm going to come in and make sure that some of the feathering comes forward a bit. I know this is a weird, fussy thing to do, but
You're adding layers.
sometimes with birds, you gotta do the fussy bits.
I get it.
You do. You gotta get a little fussy bit in because they're like, no, that's not how I'm painted. Make sure there's no hidden drop. I'm just coming back with some black. And let's get some white. And a little bit of blue. And like into it and sort of tap out a little reflection here at the back of the eye. See how we have?
Yeah.
Right. Got a nice little bird sitting there. Come back, we get to do some flowers and some like, little extra cactus bits. So I'm going to start to put some forward-facing little cactus flowers here. And I'm going to begin with a dark green.
What kind of cactus is this?
I think it's saguaro.
As you said it earlier.
I believe it is.
And they have saguaro flowers.
Well,
That is the implied.
that's the implied thing. But I'm like not a cactus expert, so.
This could be a.
Now pull back a stroke because we're going to make a little kind of pointed bud that comes here in front of one flower.
Some other kind of cactus, but we don't know about cactuses, so we're just.
Yeah, I mean, it really is true, though. I don't know about cactuses. I'm going to make another little bud right here. Could be a bud. And then I'm going to just make sure, I think, that this is quite dark here. I may put those spines back in.
Some visual texture.
But I do want to make sure that things are very dark. And I'm weirdly going to do the strangest thing. I'm going to get a little bit of my magenta into this.
Oh, yeah. That actually adds some interesting depth.
It does. It adds some crazy depth, and I'm going to put it at the tip.
How did you know to do that?
Because I know phthalo green and magenta make purple. And often on green, you'll see a deep purple shadow, and I just felt like it also.
So I was just wondering how you knew to put a purple shadow in. That was like, because you're just like, purple shadow! And I was like, that's super cool, but how'd you know to put, is that just an experience thing?
It's an experience thing. Now, this is kind of a big thing to pull in, so since it was a weird concept and I want you to capture that there's a little bit of a bud coming out here, and I've got at least a bud there, I may put one in here. Let's call this, I know these are micro steps, but sometimes a micro step is a helpful step. I'm going to take a little of my quinacridone magenta, still on my filbert. It's a filbert kind of lesson. And I'm going to take a little bit of my quin and cad. I'm going to add some white to it, and it gives me kind of almost a coral. And we're going to come here And you remember where we have the center. I'm going to paint in some sort of very loose and almost crumply flowers. Our peony, now you all just grown, but our peony kind of gave us an idea of how to paint, loose flowers from earlier. So we do have the tail kind of tucked in and peeking out, but we've got to, figure out what we're doing with this first.
Kind of framing the flower in.
Kind of frame that flower in, and it's very crepey, and it's just about the kind of brush strokes in that loose shape. At the center, I might pull in a little more of the quinacridone just to be a bit warmer into the petals. Right? And we will be playing with these quite a lot with like light edges and stuff like that to shape them out, but you kind of want to get that going. Now, I may even, look at that, mix a little of my ultramarine in there.
Ooh. Shortcake has decided to sit down below me and chew on a big rawhide, which is
So,
what you hear going crunch,
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 crunch.
crunch.
Okay, so now this one we're going to put in same way. Take a little bit of your quin and your cad red and a smidge of titanium white. I've got the center of the flower here. When I come to the right hand side, I'm going to curve a little bit up. See, so I'm curving the directionality of the petals. A little bit of the deeper quin towards the center. And then blending in a little bit of the ultramarine. Woo! It's kind of cool.
That is cool.
I want to dry this though before I do anything else.
Micro step.
So you see this kind of, yeah, it's like a little micro step. So you see the feathering, you see the shading, you kind of got it. Let's dry it and come back and I'll show you the next layer. So we're going to do a couple interesting things. We're going to come and find some delicate little crazy edges.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get a little of our white onto our brush. And I might put a little yellow into it so there's a little warmth. Sometimes I like to wipe off on a paper towel if I need to get a little control of the color.
Hmm.
If I get a little too much pigment on there. I'm going to just tap along here. And help find delicate little petals. See how that just creates those little edges?
Yeah.
Blending that down. And then a little bit there. So just a little bit of shaping, a little bit of thought. I'm going to rinse out. Get the color again on the edge. Along the little edges. Every time you do this, you'll find that the flowers almost have a different edge. I'm going to turn a little bit so I have a nice angle to the turnout on this. And you can see that sometimes I move a petal in front or behind, adding more pink to the mix. I'll come here and that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Right? That's pretty awesome. While this is all having a dry, we're going to do something interesting. We're going to take a little bit of our green and brown together in glazing medium. Do you remember the glazing medium from earlier? You see what we were doing here?
Yeah.
Now, I might need to even get a little of my ultramarine blue just to deepen it. That's a bit of a shadow. Get some glazing on here. A little ultramarine blue. See how we're sort of exaggerating the shadow of the bird?
Mm.
That helps put him more in. And this is one to be careful with, right? I'm going to come back with a damp brush and kind of clean that up. Because you're not trying to make him blue. You're just cooling it down and making some of it brighter and some of it a little more in the shadow. And while I'm here, I can take a bit of my bird color up to my brown from earlier. Come right here. Maybe a little more white.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just adding a little bit of a pop of highlight right here. Because he's as interesting as the flowers,
Mm-hmm.
you know? If I want to blend it, I can always come back with a damp brush or it's all dry. Once it's dry, but you can always come back and work things a bit. I just want to make a little highlight around his face. Oh, just give him some personality. Little space in there. All right, step. That was a lot. You did a lot. I
Yeah.
did a lot. Now I want to pull some centers into these. So I'm going to take my red and a little of my cad yellow. Kind of at first start dark. I'm using a number 4 round again. I'll come deep from the inside the flower, even though I know I'm bringing petals up. Maybe even go more red. I'm bringing petals up to cover. I want to have sort of an interior glow. So I'm just pulling this up. Now, it's sort of a soft edge, right? It's not, it's got transition. That can be hard to get, you know? Don't get frustrated with yourself. Add a little more yellow to my orange over here, and I'm rolling the brush to get some on the tip.
That's cool.
Kind of an interesting little interior.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
I really like it. I'm going to get a little of my white from before over there. Mix it into my yellow. And create these like little pollinators. Now I have, petals coming in front, so this is just about what this peeks out.
Yeah.
And these little, oh, I really like them. I really, really do. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, let's call it a step. Let's call it a step. So now we're going to add a little more detailing into the lower cactuses. Our colors are sort of interesting. We're going to take our magenta over here to our blue. I know. So it's a little bit purple. And pull a little white into it. I'm using my number 4 round. I'm going to just make sure that the tip of some of these little cactus bulbs are a bit kind of magenta or pinked in a way. And come over here, get some of this color. And we're adding just little highlights. These are like future flowers.
Yeah.
And it's true that the color is dark, and, kind of deep in there, but it's going to register to your eye and help tie in the rest of the flowers. I'm going to get into my green and brown and a little cad yellow, our cactus colors. Just curving in like with some green, capturing some of that.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Maybe bring some of that green in here, but not up to that. And that's a little bit where the structure is. And we're going to come back with the spines again, and that will pull it all together. Come back in with just a little more, maybe some yellow into the pink and a little more yellow into my green. Just sometimes when you pick up those little bits of color, it helps the plants really come together. Okay. And come back. We've got to fill in some flowers and some cactus and make it all interesting. So I'm going to start putting in some of the petals that are curling up and facing us. Let's begin with our cad red and our quin magenta. And let's pull some that are coming in. Like I'm going to pull this stroke here. Maybe this one right here. And that will help us start to see, maybe some of the underside of this bloom. We're kind of cupping that. And then as we edge it is where we'll see that they're facing us or they're down.
Oh.
Not dissimilar to how we kind of deal with the bowl of a rose.
Very pretty flower.
I hope so.
Unexpectedly.
Unexpectedly pretty, pretty flower. They're unexpectedly beautiful, right?
Mm.
Okay, so I'm going to want to make sure I want to make sure I have enough magenta and color for these to really kind of pull together. And it'll really be about capturing all the little petals this way. Dry this and we come back. We're going to do a similar thing that we did over there. So here we are. We've got to find all the little shapes and start pulling the shape of the flower together. So I'm going to grab my quin and cad red again and some of my white. And let's come here and find little petals that we can curl up. See how that curls that little petal up?
Yeah.
Curled up. And then I would say a couple of them might be on the edge. here, kind of facing us. You see just their little edges. And a little bit of them facing upward. Now I can get some yellow and white into the mix I did before. And just edge these petals. And because of the shadow, that really helps us see the shape of the flower. It's the shadow actually is our friend here. I think I'm going to do a bunch of these later. I'm really enjoying this flower. It's like, I'm
Super pretty
gorgeous.
flower.
It's like, I'm just too beautiful to be dealt with. I don't know what to tell you. And the bird's like, I've come here for the little things that pollinate you. It's probably the relationship that these two things have, right?
Mm-hmm.
So again, a little bit of the red and quinacridone. And white. And we'll come here and capture a little curled up petal. Kind of edge some in here. Just trying to get some layers to that one. It's gotten a little bit big. That's okay. A little yellow over here and a lot of white.
Super cool.
Kind of work in those little blooms where they're really pretty.
Yeah, they are.
They're super pretty. Okay. All right. Let's call that a step. Because honestly, even for me, that's like a little bit, I got to get my gears a grinding and think about it. The thing to think about is you see the edge, the petals facing you. If you see that curl, then you're going to see kind of that little curve. And if you're coming up on the edge where it's more forward facing, you'll see more of that kind of white coming down. So that's how you get those different shapes. So something to think about. Great to practice. Next step, more cactus. So much like on our cactus, we have to have little spots for spines to come out, which we kind of done earlier, but we realized we needed to move. I'm going to take a little of my maybe brown and ultramarine blue together, making that deep gray. And we're going to come here and find some spots where even these little kind of blooms of cactus are making little areas for spikies. It's kind of a darker gray. Sorry.
It's okay. Just take a moment. You okay there?
I think so. Sorry about that.
All right, you just pick right back up where you left off.
Okay. So it's kind of a darker gray because it's a little in the shadow. And this gives us just lots of opportunities to add lots of spikes because I think there's going to be great joy in the spikes. Weird thing to say there's great joy in, but I think there's going to be great joy in the spikes. I've got my fluid white. I'm adding my yellow and brown. Making sure I don't have that hidden drop, right?
Okay.
Gotta hide from that. I'm going to come here and, like before,
I'll add some more of those in.
add some more of those in. This is a weird project all the way around. I'm now thinking, just as I've been doing this, I'm like, I need to get deeper into cactuses. One, because I'm really enjoying it.
Mm-hmm.
But two, because they really ask a lot of me artistically in my being creative, like how I'm,
Well, it's really come out nice.
yeah, I really like it. Unexpectedly, really, really, really like it. I mean, I didn't pick anything to paint this year that I didn't really, really want to paint,
Right.
but I just am enjoying this. The structure versus the organic shit. It's all kind of what? Wow. Just implying that these little defensive things are just sort of everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's look at that for a second. Oh man, it's
Super cool.
interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just trying to make sure we've got spines coming from off the canvas. It's a thing. And while I'm here, I'm gonna take a little of my yellow over to my white. Kind of just make sure that there's some little bright bits for the pollinators. Just a little highlighted. It's a
Yeah.
weird touch. Probably not that necessary, but sometimes you think to yourself, "Oh, it needs it." All right, John. I feel like we did this.
Yeah.
I feel like this is a good day. It's a lot to take in. I've got to figure out where to sign and how to sign. I guess I'm going to take my green together with some white. Try to come up with a nice signing color that isn't too odd in the painting. I could probably do pink or something, but I like to, as I've said, not overwhelm the whole painting
Mm-hmm.
with a signature. Okay. So there we go. Actually, speaking of that,
There's a detail.
sometimes your signature kind of messes up a spot and you're like, ah, and fix it. Oh my gosh, guys. That was surprisingly fun and a really weird journey.
Hmm.
This has been a weird painting cycle for me because sometimes I have to run and do something with the kids and come back or do something. And so my day can get broken up. And, but it's been really good because I feel like I've digested so much.
Hmm.
This particular one I really love doing the spikes, the greens, everything. I cannot wait to see yours. Remember, you can share it on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, in our Acrylic April group, Pinterest. There's all the places you can see tomorrow's painting right now in the short shelf. So you can get a peek at what that's going to be like in just 1 minute. So that's always good to check out. I feel like Don't forget to take advantage of the step-by-step graphics and the mini book. I've been trying to give a lot of advice. That, remember, loose is hard. But the big thing to do today, and I'm going to do for myself, I'm going to say thank you to John, and I'm going to hug myself because this was a really fun, unusual project for me. Be good to yourself, be good to each other. And I want to see you at an easel really soon. Bye bye.